Hey guys, I'll be updating my prediction for the 2022 Senate elections, and I know it's been a while since I've done one of these, and a lot really has changed in these races since the last time that I made one of these predictions. So currently the Senate is split 50-50, with the Democrats having control as they control the vice presidency. The Democrats in 2022 will have to defend 14 of their seats. The GOP will have to defend 20 of their seats, and the Democrats, of course, must maintain 50 seats at a minimum to retain control of the United States Senate. So before we get started, make sure to join my Discord server if you have not. Link at the very top of the description below. I also have channel memberships for just 99 cents per month. So taking a look at this map here, I'm going to start off by filling in the solid Democratic and Republican states. These are states in which these incumbents will 100% win their re-elections as long as nothing really bad happens. There's really no way that these incumbents are going to lose their re-election. So Patty Murray in Washington going to win her re-election, as well as in Oregon. Instead of California, Alex Padilla is going to probably win his re-election if he does get that nomination. But right now, I see no reason as to why he would not. In the state of Hawaii as well, it's going to retain blue. In the state of Illinois, Tammy Duckworth. In New York, Chuck Schumer. In the state of Vermont, you have Patrick Leahy. You also have Connecticut's Richard Blumenthal, and Maryland all going to be solid for the Democratic Party, putting them up at 45 seats. Now, there's one more seat on this map I do want to take a look at, and that is the seat in the state of Colorado currently held by Michael Bennet. So Michael Bennet, as of right now, he is not exactly the strongest candidate for the state of Colorado. I do think that John Hickenlooper is a stronger candidate. In 2016, he was able to win his re-election by a margin of 5.7% after winning his first election, of course, in 2010, when he won by just 1.6%. Now, as of right now, in the state of Colorado, I do not think that Michael Bennet can win by a solid margin. If you look at the 2020 results, John Hickenlooper won by 9.3%. I think that Michael Bennet will do a little bit worse than Hickenlooper, and definitely a lot worse than Joe Biden, who won Colorado by 13.5%. So although I do think that Michael Bennet is definitely going to win his re-election, I don't think it's going to be anywhere close to a solid margin. So I will put it as a likely state for the Democratic Party, but there's really no way he's going to lose. But I just don't see a solid margin being possible for Michael Bennet in Colorado for 2022. Now, my categorizations are as follows: solid is 15% or more. South Carolina. Likely is 7 to 15%, lean is between 2 to 7%, and anything less than 2% as the final margin I categorize as tilt. So those are those four colors there. Now, for the GOP in the states of Idaho, Utah, North and South Dakota, all going to be very solid here. In the state of Kansas, you have Jerry Moran, who is going to be running for re-election in 2022. There's really no way that he does lose his race. He won by 29.9 points in 2016, so he is definitely going to bring Kansas up to a very, very solid margin for the GOP. In the state of Alabama, Richard Shelby is retiring this year or next year. However, there's really no way a Democrat does win. You did see Doug Jones win in 2018 against Roy Moore, but that was really an unprecedented exception to this rule. So the state of Alabama is going to remain very solidly in the hands of the Republican Party. South Carolina as well, Tim Scott going to win a pretty strong re-election. Kentucky, we have Rand Paul, though not the most popular. He is going to win, and he is much more popular than Mitch McConnell, who of course we saw win by over 10 points in 2020 against Amy McGrath, and in Indiana going to be solid for the Republican Party. Now, this does put the GOP up at 42 seats for their solid seats. However, there are three more states that are typically more contested that I do think the GOP will 100% hold on to with solid margins. So the first out of these three states is the state of Alaska. There's no way Alaska is going to be a blue state or an independent state. If they win, it is going to be an independent that will caucus with the Democratic Party. You did see Al Gross defeat Dan Sullivan in 2020 pretty handily. If you do look at the 2020 Senate results here, you do see that Dan Sullivan won by 12.7%. Not exactly the best margin, but in 2022, we will have Lisa Murkowski up for election. She won by 15.2% against Joe Miller, and Lisa Murkowski was not even the Republican nominee. If you do look at these results here, Lisa Murkowski was not, or in 2016, she was the Republican nominee, so that's why she won by such a large margin. But if you do look back at 2010, she won her re-election. When she lost the Republican nomination, she is not the most establishment Republican, but definitely, Lisa Murkowski here with 101,000 votes when she wasn't even the nominee. She was a write-in candidate, so every voter had to write in her name physically. So she won re-election in 2010. She will face another one of these challenges in 2022 when a huge chunk of the Republican Party does not want her to remain their senator, and that is mainly the Trump wing of the GOP right now, because Kelly Tshibaka, she is the Trump-endorsed candidate for this race. Previously, Tshibaka had actually led over Lisa Murkowski and Al Gross by huge margins earlier in May. However, the latest poll release from the state of Alaska just show Lisa Murkowski defeating both Kelly Tshibaka, Gray Jackson, and Joe Miller. So the ranked choice voting will be used, which will definitely make this race even more interesting. But I do think that no matter what, it is going to be a Republican, whether or not it's Lisa Murkowski or Kelly Tshibaka, a Republican is going to end up as the senator representing the state of Alaska in 2023. And in the state of Florida, this is another state that I will categorize as solid this time for Marco Rubio. I do believe that Marco Rubio will be able to win this seat by a pretty solid margin, and this is the chances of Lisa Murkowski again being reelected. As you can see here, she has a 60% chance of winning her re-election. The numbers have really jumped up a lot since, of course, that poll was released. Showing that she was leading by quite a bit. So Lisa Murkowski, I do think that she will win her re-election come 2022. And in the state of Florida, these are the numbers for Marco Rubio. He has an 81% chance of winning. He will be running against Val Demings. It's not been 100% confirmed as the primary has not occurred, but Val Demings has, I believe, a 93% chance of winning the Democratic nomination. There's really nobody else in the field right now or is going to announce. So Val Demings versus Marco Rubio. Val Demings, she may be, somewhat of a strong Democratic candidate. She does have history as a police officer, which I do not think will help her. But Marco Rubio, 81 cents per share. I think that will definitely be an indicator for how strong he will do, because in 2016, you did see that he won his re-election by 7.7%. If you do look at these results here against Patrick Murphy, Marco Rubio really won by a very, very solid margin. And just considering how contested Florida typically is. So 2022, I think Florida is going to be a pretty easy win for the GOP, and in the state of Iowa as well. Now, this is if Chuck Grassley does run. If Chuck Grassley does not run in 2022, I think the race will be interesting. Currently, Pat Grassley is poised to take over if Chuck Grassley does not. This is because Chuck Grassley will be 89 in 2022, and if he were to serve out his next 6 years, he would be 95 when he leaves office in 2029. I think that there is a very good chance that he does remain in the Senate. He's already going to be 89, so 95 won't be too much larger. He will be older, obviously, but he's already gotten to 89 years old. You do have Dianne Feinstein in her 90s still in the Senate, so it's not the most unlikely scenario. I personally do believe that Chuck Grassley will run for re-election. His chances of running have basically stayed at around 50 to 60% over the last couple of months here. But no matter what, it's going to remain red. Even if Pat Grassley or any of these other candidates in the state of Iowa do decide to run, if Chuck Grassley does not, I do think that it will remain a solid Republican state. Maybe not a solid margin, maybe it'll be likely, but I definitely do think that it will remain red in 2022 nonetheless. Chuck Grassley has not said whether or not he will retire. He has really said that he has no opinion on it right now, but he will be announcing something pretty soon in the fall, which is what he stated a couple of months back. So this puts the GOP at 45 and the Democrats up at 46, but if you do count Colorado as not a solid state, they are both tied right now at 45 to 45. Now, these races here, the ones in gray, these will decide the makeup of the Senate, these battleground states here. I want to start off by taking a look at the race in the state of Nevada, where incumbent Democrat Catherine Cortez Masto will be running for her re-election after defeating Joe Heck with a margin of 47.1% to Joe Heck's 44.7%. Masto winning by 2.4%. And only winning one county down there. That's where Las Vegas is located and where a huge majority of the state is. So Catherine Cortez Masto, I think that in 2022, as an incumbent, I do think she will perform better. I think that she can win by over 2.4%, which coincidentally is the same margin that both Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton had in both 2016 and 2020. So I think that in the state of Nevada, she will win her re-election. I think that she will have to try really hard to win it, and it could be close. But at the end of the day, I do think that she will somewhat comfortably win re-election in 2022, winning another 6-year term and her second term in the U.S. Senate. For the state of Arizona, I'm going to categorize it the same way as I did for the state of Nevada, and this, of course, is the seat currently held by Mark Kelly, who won the 2020 special election in the state of Arizona, where he, of course, defeated Martha McSally, who's appointed to fill the vacancy left by John McCain, who sadly died in 2017. So Mark Kelly, 51.2%, Martha McSally, 48.8%, again, a 2.4% margin for Mark Kelly here. He currently has a 60% chance of winning his re-election in 2022 in Arizona. I think that he will be victorious in the end. He is a pretty popular candidate in the state. I think he did underperform expectations in 2020, but then again, he will be an incumbent in 2022 that will give him advantages. And as the state continues to shift leftward with Joe Biden also winning the state in the presidential election in 2020, I do think that Arizona will remain in the Democratic column. Now, moving on east here to the state of Missouri, I think there will definitely be a pretty interesting race here because Eric Greens, he is poised right now to be the nominee for the Republican Party. I think that there's a pretty good chance that he does not. I do not think Donald Trump will endorse Eric Greens. I think Donald Trump will endorse one of these other candidates, and that will really shoot them up. But as of right now, Eric Greens is the front runner, and the problem with him is that he's the former governor of the state that resigned as a result of a sexual blackmail scandal. Resigned in 2018, and so that is the problem right now with Eric Greens as the frontrunner for this nomination. I don't think he will end up winning the nomination, but as of right now, it does seem as if he is doing pretty well. He does have support of the Republican Party, but for independents and Democrats, I think he has absolutely no appeal. But there isn't too much of an appeal from the Democratic side either, as the state of Missouri has shifted to the right considerably over the last decade. The Democrats, Lucas Coons currently is leading over Scott Sifton and Quentin Lucas. Claire McCaskill is not going to run for a third term, but if you do look at these numbers here, definitely it's going to be very up and down, and I think that any one of these candidates honestly could win the race, as a primary is still in a little bit less than a year. And this is because Roy Blunt is not going to be running for re-election. That's why we have both a Democratic and a Republican primary here, as he barely defeated Jason Kander in 2016. So in the state of Missouri, I'm going to categorize this as likely for the Republican Party. I do think that Eric Greens will not win this nomination, and I do not think that this race will go under 7% for the Democrats. Moving on now, even further eastward to the state of Georgia, which I think there will definitely be a pretty interesting race here. In the state of Georgia, as of right now, the Democrats are favored 53-45 to win, and this, of course, is a seat currently held by Raphael Warnock. Warnock replaced Johnny Isakson, who won re-election in 2016, but he had to resign as a result of medical issues. But in 2020, Raphael Warnock defeated incumbent Kelly Loeffler, who was appointed in just 2020 by Governor Brian Kemp. So Raphael Warnock what became the first African-American senator from the state and the first Democratic senator from the state for a very, very long time. So Raphael Warnock there, I do think that he will be winning his re-election in 2022 as of right now. As for the Republican Party right now, Herschel Walker is the strongest candidate, but new things about his past and personal life have made it so that he is not as viable of a candidate anymore. He was endorsed by Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been trying really hard to get him to run. I don't think he will end up running. I think that Gary Black or Buddy Carter will end up winning. I don't think it will be David Perdue, and Kelly Loeffler has no chance, honestly, at this point. So it's going to be a pretty interesting race here. I think nothing is set. I think the Republican nomination is still up in the air, and any one of these candidates can still win that nomination. So right now, with the field just being so divided, I am going to give it to Raphael Warnock, who, if you do look at latest polls, he does defeat Black, Walker, and Loeffler in the latest 3 polls conducted for the Georgia Senate race. Now moving up north to the state of Ohio, going to be a pretty interesting race here. I think Democrats will definitely try to pump money into this race to win, but in the end, I do not think they will ultimately succeed. For the Democrats, they will nominate Tim Ryan. There's really no one else. He will not be running for re-election for a seat in the House. For the Republicans, it's still a pretty divided primary. Lots of up and downs, as you can see here. But for the overall race, the Republicans have an 80-20 chance, the same as Florida, which I do find to be pretty surprising. So in the state of Ohio, Rob Portman, who won by a huge margin in 2016 over Tex Strickland, he will not be running for re-election, which is why, of course, the Republicans are holding a primary there. I think that it will be a lean seat for the GOP in the state of Ohio. there is no incumbent. They do not have that benefit there. I don't think a Democrat really has a chance. I think Tim Ryan is definitely the strongest candidate that the Democrats could have put up there, but in the end, I don't think that he will come out with a win. I think he'll do relatively well. I think it'll be noteworthy, but it will be nowhere near a win for Tim Ryan. Now, moving on to the state of North Carolina, it's still pretty up in the air who that nomination will be between Jeff Jackson and Cherry Beasley. And for the GOP, Ted Budd leads over Pat McCrory because Ted Budd did receive the nomination of former President Trump, which is why, you see here his numbers jumped up so quickly in June. So that is why Ted Budd right now, I think he will win the nomination with Trump's support. And if you do look at the odds, total, this is 64 for the GOP, 37 for the Democratic Party. And this is another seat in which the Republicans are having a retirement, this time being Richard Burr, who won by a pretty small 4% margin in 2016. So the Republicans up at 48 and the Democrats at 49. Moving on to the state of New Hampshire, as of right now, Chris Sununu's 76% chance that he is the nominee. Kelly Ayotte at 16. She is the former senator from the state who lost to the incumbent Maggie Hassan, the Democrat, by a very, very slight margin and less than 1,000 votes. So just a little bit over 1,000 votes. So Maggie Hassan, she will face a very tough re-election against Chris Sununu. And as of right now, the Democrats are favored. That is really only because Chris Sununu has not yet announced his candidacy. I think he will announce it. It is a perfect time for him to run. And as of right now, I will be flipping New Hampshire for the Republican Party. I do think that in the end, he is a very popular Republican governor of the state, and the state can vote Republican. And I do think that in 2022, as of right now, Maggie Hassan will just come up a little bit short. The state of Pennsylvania is next, another pretty interesting race here. John Fetterman is poised to be the nominee right now. He's been leading for quite a while. However, Conor Lamb has been catching up. He's the pretty popular lieutenant governor of the state. I do think that he will end up winning this race for the Democratic nomination. For the GOP, Sean Parnell leads over Jeff Bartos. And for the race as a total, this is Wisconsin, but for the race as a total, I believe the chances currently is around 60-40 in favor of the Democratic Party. I do think they will hold on to it. If you do look at the polling numbers for John Fetterman, I think that really does say a lot. +8, +10 over the two Republican frontrunners right now. So I will put this state in the lean column for the Democratic Party as of right now, putting them up at the 50 seats that they need. And finally, in the state of Wisconsin, it's a pretty spread out Democratic field right now. I think that definitely a lot of these candidates can do well. Everything is up in the air right now, while for the GOP, Ron Johnson has a 52% chance of winning. It really has fallen quite a bit. I do not think Ron Johnson will run for re-election. He's stated many times that he's not really interested in another 6-year term, but many Republicans, including Trump, are begging him to run because he is the best candidate. If not, Mike Gallagher does seem to be the front runner right now. So this will, right now, I do think that even though Ron Johnson will not be the nominee, he did win by a pretty respectable 3.2% margin in 2016. I do think that Ron Johnson, even if he doesn't run, I think that this state will remain in the hands of the Republican Party. It will be a GOP wave year following the presidency of Joe Biden being elected in 2020. So this is my final 2022 Senate map, 50-50 for the GOP and the Democrats. The Democrats will retain control of the U.S. Senate. You can check out my previous projections here on map.jacksonjude.com and go to the Senate category and choose PA projection. You can see my previous Senate projections here as well. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Comment down below which party you think will win in 2022, and I'll see you guys in the next video.